So in 2004, my partner, my co-founder, he had wanted to leave the business, and we talked about it, and he and I spoke, and essentially we agreed that he would wait a little bit of time because we were at sort of an inflection point where I thought we both thought there would be a lot of value creation. But we started having some conversations with people around doing a secondary sale so that we could get some liquidity, because we both come from very modest backgrounds. To raise $345,000, you have to talk with 120 people and ultimately get it from 44. It meant that some people were putting in $500 and $10,000 and what have you. So once the business started to reach a certain level of scale, we started getting inbound inquiries from prospective investors or prospective acquirers, and we agreed that he'd wait a little bit of time. And so he waited, and then in the beginning of 2005, a lot of that activity started, that much more aggressively, and he really wanted to get liquidity. And so what we really agreed on, let's try to get three things out of whatever. Well, so initially we went down the path as a secondary sale or as a minority sale. And we had a couple of conversations with some growth equity oriented investors, and one of them actually orally said, here's what we would, here's the general range of values we described to your business as a minority investor, but to the extent we were going to take control of your business, here's what we would think the value of the business would be. And that there was a huge premium for majority control. And so, and they were very serious, they said that if you want, we'll put something formally in writing so you can talk it over at the board level. And that really was, an interesting set of conversations that we had internally. And so we weren't sure exactly what we were going to do, but we wanted to seriously look at everything. So we ran a secondary, we ran a process where I spoke with a couple dozen prospective minority investors and whittled that down to the handful that I thought would be the most appropriate. And then we also engaged in a process on the majority side where we had conversations with a dozen or so prospective acquirers. And it became clear over time that while that initial disconnect, initial disparity was significant, over time it became even more, in absolute dollars at least, even more. And so we decided that we were going to go the majority route, and we actually engaged with a private equity sponsor, and they said, what is it that you really want to get out of this? And my perspective is, we want three things. One is liquidity for our stockholders, and it wasn't a complete sale of the business, it was majority sale. So we wanted liquidity for the stockholders. We wanted a commitment around sort of growth equity in the business. So not only would you agree to make an acquisition and buy some of the founder stock and the initial investor stock, but you'd also agree to commit incremental dollars back into the business to help grow the business. And then the third really was to help us build out sort of a broader platform for our people and our partners, so that we had a lot of people where this was the first, second, or third job, and we didn't have formal training or anything along those lines. And we felt like we made a lot of representations to our people. We asked a lot from them. We wanted to give back to them. And so we thought, like, if we can solve for those three as part of this transaction, that would be great. We went down the path actually with a private equity sponsor, and we signed an exclusive agreement, exclusive term sheet with them. And literally with like 3 or 4 days before the exclusivity expired, they started materially changing the terms. They wanted to apply debt on the business, going through, is this person key, is this person key? I got a really uncomfortable feeling with them. One, because they changed the terms, and I felt like that's not the partner that I actually want to have. So that was, for me, sort of a game stopper. But also it became clear that this was a financial engineering play for them, and they wanted to generate as much cash flow in a short period of time to be able to flip the business. At least that was sort of my interpretation. And so we ended up disengaging with them, actually against the advice of our advisor, partly because our advisor said, look, these financial sponsors are in the business of buying companies. And if you tell the marketplace that you disengaged, then the marketplace is not really going to believe you, because this is the first time you're selling a business. These guys have gotten lots and lots of deals done, so the market's going to think they identified something in due diligence that's wrong with the business, and you may not be able to sell the business or have a transaction for some period of time. And I went back and I spoke with a couple of trusted investors, my partner, my wife, and my other friend at the company, and they basically said, it's your call. If you want to disengage, okay. So I called the other party and I told them that we weren't going to pursue a transaction with them, which was far and away the most stressful, one of the most stressful events I've ever had in my life. And I actually was super depressed the day after. I stayed in bed until like 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and I just thought to myself, like, my goodness, what often happens is you start to get to a point where you're thinking about how your life might be able to change, the financial security you might be able to have, the returns you're going to be able to give to your friends and family, the ability to actually invest in your people and your team, and how you can scale the business. And then in sort of like the next day, that's gone. So it was really, really traumatic. And at 3 o'clock, I sort of woke up, and my daughter was there. I have 2 kids, 6 and 3, 2 girls, and my older one was running around, and she was smiling. And then my partner called me, and he said, get off your butt, and you did this once, go out and talk with everybody again. And sometimes everybody needs that shove. My wife said the same thing. My other friend, they said, look, we told you your call, you made it, and great. And I'm probably being more melodramatic than I need to be, but definitely it was a very challenging inflection point. And so we went back out, and I spoke with a whole host of other parties and explained what had happened and how we wanted to reinforce to them that if those 3 goals of our transaction aren't going to be accomplished, we're not going to pursue a transaction with them. And Aramark, which I thought was the sort of best strategic fit for the business, said they completely understood and they were ready to engage immediately, and we went down the path with them, and it ended up being a great outcome. And a big part of it was, one, they as an organization really appreciate investing in their people, and they were very enthusiastic about us doing the same thing. It's a very well-run company. The leadership has been in place for a very long time, so it's a stable management team. They're longer-term investors, so it's not like some companies buy and flip companies. That really wasn't their mindset. And then from a strategic standpoint, we had 1,500 clients when we sold the business. They had over 75,000 clients in just one of their business lines. And so every acquired company does the math of, if we can only convert 5% of what they do, we'll do X to our business. And so we did some of the back of the envelope math, and we said, wow, we really can dramatically change the trajectory of our business, and that's why we ultimately went down the path of Aramark. About a month after we sold, my partner left, and I stayed, continuing to run the business, and stayed there for a little over 3.5, 4 years, and then in February decided that it was time to move on. And there was a whole bunch of sort of behind the scenes reasons that I won't go into in detail, certainly not in front of an audience or one that's televised. But from my standpoint, I think it was a great acquisition for them. I think it was a great acquisition for us. The people were incredibly supportive. There was a sort of earn-out component to our sale process. I don't know how familiar you all are with earn-outs, but there's often friction between target and acquired businesses, and they couldn't have been more honorable about the calculations and the methodology, always deferential to our business. So it was really just a tremendous outcome all around, and very happy with it. And it was a great learning experience for me personally. It's a Fortune 500 company with 260,000 people in 22 countries, and I got a chance to be on the Global Leadership Council, a group like this of 25 folks who made all of the strategy decisions across the company for 4 years. So it was a really huge learning experience for me, which would definitely not have been available on the, if we'd gone with a financial sponsor side. On the flip side is we may or may not have sold for a little bit less than we otherwise could have, but I kind of looked at it as you could compensate it in a lot of different ways. One is one is financial, and then the other is education and